Hi there, and welcome to Karen Abel Travels. I'm Karen. We're here at the US Capitol, and welcome to my series, The Best of Washington, D.C. Tour Guide. We will be exploring the US Capitol, the Library of Congress, several memorials including the Ulysses S. Grant Memorial, the Garfield Memorial, the Martin Luther King Memorial, and the Native American Indian Memorial, which is located at the Native American Indian Museum, which we will also tour. Washington, D.C. has over 70 museums, with the Smithsonian Institute comprising 21 museums along with the National Zoo. 11 of the Smithsonian museums are located along the National Mall. We will tour the National Portrait Gallery, which is part of the Smithsonian American Art Museum as well. Washington, D.C. has more than 160 monuments and memorials, with 100 of those located within the National Mall and Park area. The city is filled with statues, fountains, and artwork, and is a great city for walking. In this episode, we will tour the Air and Space Museum, the National Gallery of Art West, and the National Gallery of Art Sculpture Garden. And finally, we will go over to the US Botanical Garden. If you love mural art, we will explore 2 areas in DC, including the Graffiti Museum, so stick around till the end of the video for that. As well as the tours of the best of DC, I will give several recommendations for my favorite places to eat. No matter what season you visit, there are a plethora of things to do. Cycling in summer, the Cherry Blossom Festival in spring, ice skating in winter, and experiencing fall foliage. As we celebrate our 250th anniversary this year in 2026, I am reminded by the optimism, hope, and the altruism that has been a hallmark of our great nation as we approach July 4th, 2026. I hope you enjoy my series on Washington, D.C. I'm starting my tour today at Capitol Hill. The Capitol building is home to the US Congress. The building represents neoclassical architecture, and construction began in 1793. The dome was designed by Thomas Walter. The building is part of the Capitol complex that includes the House and Senate office buildings, the US Botanical Garden, which we will tour at the end of this video, the Library of Congress, and the Supreme Court. The Capitol grounds has 58 acres with winding paths, large lawns, 100 varieties of trees, plenty of benches to sit on, and flowers. The original plan for the grounds was completed in 1892 by landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted and has been named an arboretum since 2017. This area was originally a wooded wilderness during George Washington's time. From here we see the bronze statue of Freedom on top of the Capitol dome. Let's head on over to the entrance of the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center to begin our tour of the U.S. Capitol. After passing through security, you will walk into the Visitor Center that has numerous statues of famous Americans through the ages. There is a democracy lab, interactive exhibits, and historical artifacts. The tour then proceeds into the Orientation Theater for a 15-minute film about the American experience and how our country established a new form of government.
Emerges one country, one nation.
The crypt is a vaulted space beneath the rotunda and holds 40 Doric-style columns that were installed in the 1820s. The Capitol Tour showcases art and history of America as the tour walks through the historic rotunda, the National Statuary Hall, and the crypt. As we enter the rotunda, we immediately see the architecture, the sculptures, and the paintings. This space is used mainly for ceremonial events. There are 8 paintings, 4 from 1817 from the Revolutionary period, and 4 from 1840 to 1855, depicting early exploration. The walls are 48 feet high. There are 36 windows, and the painted scenes trace American history. The statues around the periphery are mainly of U.S. presidents. We now enter the National Statuary Hall and is known as the Old Hall of the House of Representatives. This hall was built between 1815 and 1819, as the original was burned by the British in 1814. The room is beautiful and holds a part of the nation's collection of statues donated from each of the 50 states and representing Americans prominent from each state. Here, the walls speak American history, and in this room in 1824, the Marquis de Lafayette was the first foreign citizen to address Congress, and here 5 of the early presidents were inaugurated. The next part of our tour is a self-guided tour of the Library of Congress. A timed entry pass is needed to enter, and the library can be accessed by an underground tunnel from the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center. The current design was based on the Paris Opera House, and the first library's collection was destroyed by the British in the War of 1812. Congress then purchased Thomas Jefferson's book collection of over 6,000 books and maps to begin again. The architecture, art, decoration, and history is worth a visit, as it is considered to be one of the most beautiful libraries in the world. The architectural style is Italian Renaissance, as we see in the fountains in front. The interior represents the Beaux Arts style and consists of granite, marble, bronze, and mahogany. Perhaps the most famous and valuable book in the library is the Gutenberg Bible. The Bible revolutionized communication. In this room, on the ceiling, is a painting of Minerva, which we see several times in the library. The library holds the Emancipation Proclamation, the Gettysburg Address, Columbus's Book of Privileges, and both Washington and Jefferson's inaugural speeches. As we end our tour inside the Library of Congress and walk out front, we see the bronze fountain known as the Court of Neptune. It is connected to the building by a staircase. The horse symbolizes water, and the sculpture was designed by Roland Hinton Perry, and the friezes by Albert Wein. It's time for breakfast, so we'll head on over to Founding Farmers. The food is always consistently fresh and delicious. I highly recommend this restaurant for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. There's a nice selection of in-house baked items here, and I found the prices to be quite reasonable. So they put a little dollop of chocolate right at the edge of the cup where you take your sip. So you get this really nice flavor of chocolate with the hot chocolate. It's delicious. Now let's head back on over to the U.S. Capitol area where the Ulysses S. Grant Memorial is located. The Ulysses S. Grant Memorial is the largest equestrian monument in the U.S. It was dedicated in 1922. The memorial is located in Union Square near the reflection pool, with the U.S. Capitol serving as its backdrop. Located at the eastern end of the National Mall, the memorial commands an impressive sight. Grant was a 2-term president and served from 1869 to 1877, and in this memorial, President Grant is both celebrated as president and as Lincoln's general during the Civil War, serving as a link between both roles he played in American history. Along with the bronze statue of Grant atop his horse, there are 4 lions serving as guards, and a life-size cavalry group on the north and an artillery group on the south. The artillery group was the largest bronze group sculpture to date and was assembled in 1912. The cavalry group has 7 horsemen on the battlefield. Drama, movement, and a visually stunning sculpture highlights the struggle that took place during the Civil War. The Garfield Monument is a short walk from the Grant Memorial, so let's walk on over. The bronze statue was designed by American sculptor John Quincy Adams Ward and was first unveiled in 1887. It was cast by the Henry Bonnard Company of New York. Below the main statue, sculptures depicting his early life first as a teacher, then a warrior, and finally as a statesman. The tablet says Law, Justice, Prosperity, which represents his life achievements as congressman, senator, and president. The monument was first unveiled in 1887 and became part of the US Capitol grounds in 1975. Our next tour is a 5-minute walk from here, so let's head on out. The National Museum of the American Indian is part of the Smithsonian Institute and is free to enter. It's a different sort of museum and represents Native Americans in the Western Hemisphere. The museum opened in 2004. It was designed by Douglas Cardinal, and its curvilinear form represents Mother Earth. Its design reflects how wind and water shape stone and earth. It seeks to meld beauty, balance, and harmony together. As we walk the periphery of the museum outdoors, we see the Plain Indians' adobes, a water fountain which blends elements of the natural world with over 40 large boulders known as grandfather rocks, and over 27,000 trees and shrubs in the recreated wetlands. The museum lies on 4 acres along the National Mall. The museum's mission statement says it creates and fosters a shared human experience by attempting to understand the journey of Native people in the Western Hemisphere. Facing the front entrance is the Native American Veterans Memorial, which opened in 2020. The tribute pays homage to the Native heroes in every branch of the U.S. military and is designed to provide an area for gathering and reflection. The Warriors Circle of Honor was designed by Harvey Pratt of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma. The museum's mission statement says it creates and fosters a shared human experience by attempting to understand the journey of Native people throughout the Western Hemisphere. The ground floor has a totem and a canoe on display. There are several ongoing exhibits like the Americans that display images, names, and stories that illustrate how deeply embedded Native Americans are in the American culture and identity. Several historical events, such as Pocahontas' life, the Trail of Tears, and the Battle of Little Bighorn, invite reflection and dialogue. The treaty exhibit is wonderful and very thought-provoking as well. The museum's collection began from the George Hay Foundation beginning in 1897, and it was his personal collection of Indian artifacts that was so vast it filled 3 museums. The collection was transferred to the Smithsonian in 1989 for preservation. Along with the permanent exhibits, there are rotating exhibits such as the one currently on display, named The Water's Edge by Truman Lowe. Truman Lowe says, "When I see a stream and the movement of the water, I know that I am alive." And then continue sculpture, and then continue to create. The Americans exhibit explores how images and names of Indians have become an emotional connection to the American Indian. There are references to historical events like the Trail of Tears, the Battle of Little Bighorn, the Indian Removal Act, and even Pocahontas, the first American Indian to cross the Atlantic Ocean and marry an Englishman during colonial American times. She helped save Captain Smith and Jamestown. Her image is on a 5-cent postal stamp from 1907. Her image is also depicted 3 times in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. The Trail of Tears was a forced relocation of Cherokee and indigenous people to lands west of the Mississippi, and it has come to symbolize a difficult journey. Signed into law by Andrew Jackson in 1830, it was a means for the U.S. government to push natives off southern land for the white settlers. Images of the American Indian appear everywhere in American culture, from motorcycles to missiles to U.S. postal stamps, even butter, that represent our culture, heritage, business, and military as potent symbols of our nation. The exhibit is very powerful and thought-provoking and leaves the viewer with the knowledge that the Indians' history is also interwoven with our own history and culture. This drawing is a dancer named Rain in the Face. He was a Lakota leader from the Plains Indians in the 1800s. Lakota painted model teepee from 1890, made out of hide, wood, porcupine quills, tin cones, feathers, horsehair, paint, sinew, and twine. This was from 2012, made by David Dragonfly. This modern picture is titled Victory Dance by Daryl Thunder, and it was made in 2012. This is called Grand Entry from 2012, also by Daryl Growing Thunder. This modern doll from 2009 is wearing an honor dress. Here is a drawing made in 2012 of Spotted Eagle. A portrait made by Lauren Goodday in 2012. She's Arikara Hidatsa, Blackfoot, and Plains Cree. The Nation-to-Nation Treaties exhibit showcases diplomats and leaders of Indian nations and focuses on the oftentimes difficult road they both traveled in their negotiations. The exhibit includes actual treaties, the history and legacy of U.S. American Indian diplomacy from the colonial period through present times. Here we have a statue of George Washington with Native Americans. He had a complicated relationship with natives. George Washington valued nation-to-nation diplomacy and preferred the idea of expansion with honor as a way to avoid war. He preferred the status of sovereign nations under federal authority, and he met with tribal leaders many times. As we leave the museum, we see the flags on display on the ground floor. There's a huge collection of tribal flags which represent their sovereignty and continuing presence of Native people here in America. Stay with me as we head on out to our next museum tour, the National Air and Space Museum. I'm early for my timed entry pass to the museum, so I stopped at the bar Americano in the National Mall in front of the Air and Space Museum. Good time for an iced tea.
Thank you very much.
A short 5-minute walk from the American Indian Museum will take us to the National Air and Space Museum, and it's free to enter, although you do need a timed entry pass. The museum is 2 stories with many exhibit rooms to explore. There are 6 main collections inside, plus the Wright brothers and early aviation and the Apollo missions. There is so much to see and explore, and I highly recommend seeing the 1903 Wright brothers flyer, Lindbergh's The Spirit of St. Louis, and the Apollo 11 command module. Also on the 2nd floor, they show feature films in the IMAX theater for an additional fee. The Wright brothers exhibit is my favorite, with statues of the brothers out front. Explanations on how they started out, the 1903 Wright flyer that made aviation history is there, and It follows the trajectory from being inventors to American icons. There's Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis hanging from the ceiling, quite interesting, and several other early planes. Super fascinating museum. I think you'll agree when you see it. Next up, we'll walk across the National Mall to the National Gallery of Art. The National Gallery of Art West has a world-class collection of masterpieces, and we'll explore the West Building in this episode. It has a vast collection of sculptures as well as European paintings from the 13th century through the 20th century. As we enter the museum, we see the gorgeous fountain with a statue of Mercury in the center. Two wings off the rotunda house sculptures and are known as the East Sculpture Hall and the West Sculpture Hall. Sculptures by Jean Houdin from 1786. This is from 1832 by Pierre Danger. This is called The Realist Landscape. This is from Edgar Degas, A Woman Viewed from Behind. The Sisters by Berthe Morisot. This painting is titled Boy in a Red Waistcoat by Paul Cézanne. By Camille Pissarro from 1897. This is by Auguste Renoir, The Dancer. This is by Claude Monet, 1899, titled The Japanese Footbridge. This marble is Galatea from 1701 by Robert Lorraine. This is Cupid from 1744 by Bouchardon. A marble, 1751 by Jean-Baptiste Lemoine. The National Gallery West has more art than one can see in a day, but don't miss Leonardo da Vinci's Ginevra da Benci, perhaps the most famous painting in the gallery. If you have seen Netflix The Medici, then you may recognize these two important members of the Medici family, Lorenzo il Magnifico and his brother Giuliano. This is a terracotta statue of Giuliano de' Medici, made by Andrea del Verrocchio from 1435. Thanks to the altruism of Andrew Mellon, a financier, statesman, and industrialist who began his art collection in the 1870s and chose to endow his huge collection of European art to the nation. He gifted works by famous artists such as Rembrandt, Titian, Raphael, and Van Eyck. In 1937, Congress granted the funds for a new National Gallery of Art, which opened in 1941. Andrew Mellon's son, Paul Mellon, gifted another 1,000 works of art to the gallery, including Degas, Picasso, Gauguin, and Bonnard. Tucked back in a far corner, we can see several paintings by Vermeer. Highly recommend seeing those. One can easily spend half a day here in this museum. But next up, we will explore the National Gallery of Art Outdoor Sculpture Garden, which is a 5-minute walk across the street. Let's go! The third addition to the National Gallery of Art is the Outdoor Art Sculpture Garden and has modern and contemporary art. The Sculpture Garden was designed by the landscape architect Laurie Olin and his firm Olin. It's a spacious 6-acre garden open from 10 to 6 in summer and 10 to 5 in winter. It's a great place to have a picnic. There are 21 sculptures in the garden, plus a fountain that becomes an ice skating rink in wintertime. I have a full video on this garden, and I'll leave a link in the description below. Next up, lunch at one of my favorite restaurants in DC, Jaleo by Chef Jose Andres. I was there in the late afternoon, so there weren't very many people, and I asked to be seated outside. Here at Jaleo, the menu is extensive, and many of the tapas items are meant to be shared. I was there by myself, and I ordered a salad and the gazpacho soup, a sangria, and bread. The bread is an extra charge. The salad had the dressing all around the periphery of the plate, so it wasn't mixed in, which was surprising to me. Be prepared because it is a bit pricey, but the food is fresh and delicious. This is General Hancock. Hang in there with me. Next up, we'll head on over to the National Portrait Gallery. The Smithsonian's American Art Museum and the National Portrait Gallery are connected by an atrium, so let's go tour the Presidential Gallery next. The gallery has the only complete collection of all U.S. presidents except those at the White House. The museum holds more than 1,700 portraits of U.S. presidents. The gallery displays a life-size portrait of Abraham Lincoln painted from life in 1865. It has a huge impact on everyone who has walked through it and seen the collection. Here are some of my favorites. The National Portrait Gallery is open daily, 11:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., and is free to the public. It is part of the Smithsonian Institute Museums. Next up, let's head on over to the 14th Street Graffiti Museum. This is a walkable outdoor art experience featuring mural art, and it's open daily. It began in 2020 when 20 artists came together to create this fantastic modern mural art installation on buildings in a commercial zone in order to create self-expression, promote original works by modern go-go, hip-hop, and hardcore artists. Its vibrant and bold colors pop off the walls. Bring a camera as you will not want to miss some pics here. For lunch, I recommend Le Diplomat. Always good food, excellent service, and a large menu to choose from. I ordered the French onion soup and the roast beef sandwich on a caraway seed baguette. A complimentary bread basket is served with a meal with fresh whipped butter. The roast beef sandwich is served with a horseradish cream sauce and a caraway seed baguette, which is what makes it special. A really great way to get around DC is by renting an e-bike. So let's take a tour along the National Mall and head on over to the tidal basin. If you are visiting DC in the spring, don't miss the Cherry Blossom Festival at the tidal basin. Part of the National Park Service, it also features live music, and it is free to enter. The Martin Luther King Memorial is located along the tidal basin. The memorial is filled with symbolism for the struggle from despair to hope, for equality and victory from disappointment. Designed by the Roma Design Group and depicting the theme of Martin Luther King emerging from a mountain, which comes from a line from his "I Have a Dream" speech in 1963. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. The memorial was sculpted by the Chinese artist Master Li Yixing. Sculpted from pink granite, the 30-foot sculptural captures the spirit and essence of Martin Luther King. Up next, we will tour the US Botanical Garden, so let's head on over there. The US Botanical Garden is located near Capitol Hill with a view of the Capitol Dome from the entrance to the conservatory. It is free to enter and there are 10 areas to explore. The outdoor National Garden focuses mainly on plants native to the Mid-Atlantic region. The vision for the Botanic Gardens fulfills George Washington's aim of a national garden that serves as a living plant museum for plant conservation, education, and research. During the winter season, the U.S. Botanical Garden sets up and features a model train and dinosaur display in the outdoor garden area, which is a favorite for children as well as adults. Let's head on inside and take a tour of the observatory. Inside there are climate-controlled areas with various environments that we will walk through on our tour, such as a rainforest with a canopy catwalk and a desert area with cactuses. Inside you will see beautiful large palm trees and a lot of orchids as well. Up to the second level, you can climb stairs or there's an elevator you can take. If you love plants and nature as I do, the Botanical Gardens offers a wonderful respite from the hustle and bustle of the metropolis outside. It takes maybe an hour to 2 hours to go through the entire Botanical Gardens and the outdoor gardens. Next, we will walk through the sliding glass doors into a cactus area. There's some beautiful gardens featuring southwestern plants and cactus native to deserts. Our walking tour takes us back into the foyer area. The US Botanic Garden also features the Bartoldi Garden and Fountain, which is next door along Washington Avenue and Independence Avenue. That'll be the last stop on our tour, so let's head on over there. The Bartoldi Fountain is part of the US Botanical Gardens and was created in 1932. A beautifully landscaped 2-acre park designed based on a sustainability model. It is across the street from the main garden. The fountain was created by Frederick August Bartoldi, and it is made from cast iron and weighs more than 15 tons and stands 30 feet tall. The gardens were redesigned in 2016 as a sustainable site initiative pilot project, and it's a favorite refuge for Washingtonians. Washington, D.C. has many parks and outdoor spaces for sitting, having a picnic, or just meeting up with friends. It's a part of the beauty of our nation's capital. Well, friends, if you've made it this far in the video, I thank you humbly for watching. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. I'm going to end my video here. Thank you so much, and peace and love.